everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Sarah, and in today's video I will be showing you how to crochet a sea turtle. Now these guys work up pretty quick. They're about an hour and 45-minute project, so they're not the fastest of market prep, but they are definitely worth the time. I work these up as quick as I can, usually in a streamlined fashion. So make all the shells and then make all the fins and then the heads and then crochet it all together. This is a no-sew pattern. Everything is crocheted together. The only sewing we do is when we secure the head, and that's an optional step. I recommend doing it, and it's not very hard. It is worth it because otherwise the head will be very floppy. So this is one of my best sellers for markets. I have 8 in the background, as you can see, all in different colored shells. For today's sea turtle madness, we are going to need some yarn. Now I've made this pattern with size 4 yarn, with plushie yarn, Chenille yarn, and with blanket yarn, which is what I'll be working with today. So this is Bernat Blanket. I have this color for the shell and then a basic cream color for the body. I recommend if you're going to make toys, especially toys you're selling, use an off-white rather than just a plain white. That way, if it starts to get a little dirty, it's not as noticeable. You'll also need a crochet hook. I like to use a size 7 for Bernat Blanket, just because the blanket can be a little bit stickier. So instead of breaking my hands, I'll use a slightly bigger hook. I've known people can use 6.5 or 6 or even lower. So use whatever hook is best for you. Just note your pieces will turn out in different sizes depending on the hook you use. I'll set those aside just for a second. Now we have the safety eyes. Now I don't know what size these are, but I'll definitely put it up on the screen so you can check them out. I get these in a set of 5 or 6 different sizes, and this is the biggest size. For sea turtles, I find the bigger the eyes, the cuter they end up looking. If you don't like to use safety eyes, you can sew the eyes on as well. I actually have a tutorial on that, which I'll link below, and it is on these sea turtles, so that makes it even easier. And then for the rest of the materials, you'll need stuffing, which is off screen, and you'll need a sewing needle. I recommend plastic when working with these bigger yarns, a pair of scissors, and a stitch marker if you need it. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can just use a scrap of yarn or something similar. So once you get all your materials together, we're going to start on our turtle. Now I recommend starting on the shell and making a bunch of the shells, if you're market prepping of course, making a bunch of different colored shells, and then moving on to the next part. We're gonna start with the shell. I'm gonna be using this lovely purpley blue mix. I find that turtle shells are a great way to get rid of some really crazy yarn. So if you have any colors on hand and not a lot of it, you can make turtle shells out of it. I'm going to find the center pull for my yarn. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't, and I think I pulled from the wrong end. So I did not get lucky this time. Here's my yarn bar. We're just gonna throw that over there and hopefully use up all of it when we do the shell. For the shell, you start your shell with either a chain 2 method or the magic ring, whichever method you prefer. But before I continue, I'd like to say if you want the written pattern for this guy, go ahead and check out the description. I have the written pattern. It's in my Ribbler or my coffee shop. So if you want a PDF, go to my coffee shop. If you have a Ribbler account, go to the Ribbler link. So I like to use the magic ring or the chain 2 interchangeably. So you can use either or. If you're using the chain 2 method, you're going to make a slip knot, and you want to use your tail to make the slip knot, and then of course chain 2 and single crochet 6 for your first round. And then you can close this up. If you're using Chenille yarn, I recommend using some acrylic yarn in place of the magic ring, which I have a tutorial on. I'll also link that down below. So if you're using like a regular plushy Chenille yarn, I recommend using the acrylic, and your magic ring will close up very easily. So once you have 6 single crochets, we're going to begin round 2, which is 2 single crochets in each stitch or an increase in each stitch. And you'll have 12 stitches when you are finished. And if you're using your stitch marker, feel free to use it now. I like to mark the last stitch of the round with my stitch marker. Now we're basically going to increase and then single crochet all the way up till we have a single crochet of 6. So I'll put that up on the screen on what the round count is, but basically we'll do increase single crochet, next round we'll do increase single crochet 2, and we'll repeat that all the way up to increase single crochet 6. Feel free to pause the video as well and rewind as needed. I like to mention this because my tutorials aren't necessarily geared toward total beginners. I'm more geared toward advanced beginners and intermediate crocheters. So if I go too fast, pause it, slow it down, make sure to read the instructions carefully on the screen. Hopefully that will help you figure out the pattern. And like I said, if you need the written pattern, you can go ahead and check out the description for it. Here is what the turtle shell looks like once you've completed all your increases. If you're using really stiff Bernat Blanket yarn or just a stiff yarn in general, what you'll want to do is just single crochet one round. If you are using a less stiff yarn like what I'm using right now, you'll do 2 single crochet rounds. Now, just to show you an example, this pink one I made with 1 single crochet round, and this blue one I made with 2. As you can see, they look very similar, even though there's a different round count. Use whichever increase or whatever single crochet round you think you need. I find that the pointier at the top is, the less rounds you'll need for the single crochet round. I'm going to be doing 2 for this shell. I also have a very stiff Bernat yarn that I will be making a second one out of, and that one I'll likely use 1 single crochet round. Pick whichever one works for you and your yarn, and you know, the shell can always be a little thicker as well, so it's not a big deal whichever one you choose to go with. Once you have finished your single crochet round or rounds, we're going to move on to the final round, and that is single crocheting in each stitch, but you're only going to be going through the front loops. So you're going to be leaving the back loop behind because we're going to be working into that later on when we finish the belly. Once you have finished the front loop only round, we're going to slip stitch in the next stitch, chain 1 and fasten off. You just need a short little tail. All we're going to be doing is tucking it in. I have a little bit of yarn bark left over, but it's not too big of a deal because I'll be working with this yarn later. I'm going to be making one of my elephants with this yarn, and I think it's going to be so cute. Once you finish your shell, you can get rid of that yarn. You're not going to be using it again, and pull through that chain 1 you made. Now there's a couple of things we need to do before we finish the shell and set it aside. So what we're going to do is secure our center tail. So whether you're using the chain 2 method or the magic ring, I recommend doing this. Just thread your needle and create a little loop, slip your needle under it, and then do that a couple of times just to create a little bit of a knot. If a little kid gets their finger under the magic ring or the chain 2 method, he can or she can loosen it. So tying this knot just helps its longevity. And then we're also going to deal with this second tail. So I like to insert through the front to the inside of the shell and then back through the top stitch into the outside or into the inside of the shell, and then slip this yarn underneath one of the back loops, and you can just pull it out. What we're going to do is we're going to join our white yarn when we get to the belly. We're going to join our yarn here, and when we do that, after a couple rounds, we'll tie these two tails together and secure everything. For now, you can set this aside and we can work on the head. If you want, you can make the belly a different color, so you can make all the fins and everything the same color, and then change the color for the stomach, which I've done before with a green, brown, and then like a tan for the belly. Somewhere in here is the tail that has eluded me. Hopefully Bernat Blanket isn't too difficult to untangle. So now we're going to start our head, which like earlier we're going to do the chain 2 or the magic ring method. I'll be using the magic ring, and in that center ring you're going to be doing 6 single crochets. Now for round 2, we're going to increase in each stitch around. For round 3, we are going to increase and then single crochet 1. Now for round 4, we're going to increase single crochet 2 6 times or all the way around. I know that sometimes when I say 6 times, you want to count it, but if you're using a stitch marker, just do it all the way around. And then for round 5, we're going to increase single crochet 6 times. Okay, once you have finished those increase rounds, we're going to single crochet in each stitch around for 4 rounds total. Okay, once you have finished your single crochet rounds, this is about what it should look like. We are going to decrease single crochet 3, 6 times or all the way around. Now we will decrease single crochet 2 all the way around. And for our final round, we're going to decrease single crochet 1. Now, I like to fasten off before putting the eyes in or stuffing, but if your hole is as small as you want it to be before putting the safety eyes in, go ahead and put the safety eyes in now. I'll explain it later so you can skip ahead and then come back. But before you go and skip ahead, the last round is just a decrease single crochet. So if you want to put the eyes in now, go ahead and do it. I like to wait, like I said. So decrease single crochet 1 and then fasten off when you're finished. When you fasten off, leave a long tail, okay? Don't forget to leave a tail. So slip stitch, chain 1, fasten off, leave a tail. It doesn't need to be too long, but definitely needs to be long enough for sewing. So now with the head, we're going to do a couple things just like we did with the shell. We're going to secure our center tail first and foremost. So an alternative way that you can secure your center tail is using your crochet hook, drawing up any of the loops in the center, and then yarn over with the little end, with the little tail, and then yarn over once again and pull through. This creates a knot on the back side. It's not as tight as you could get with a sewing needle, but it is just as effective. So if you don't want to pick up your sewing needle for every single one of these, you can just use your hook. So now the second thing we have to do is add the eyes. So the eyes go between the first 2 single crochet rounds, which is round 6 and 7, I believe. And then the eyes, you'll want to put them where they're slightly lower on the face for the underside. So this is what a finished one would look like. It's just by a couple stitches, 1 or 2 stitches, or you can just go straight across horizontally. Either way it will work. Like I said, I'm using these gigantic eyeballs. So usually I like to start the tail being at the bottom of the chin. Now this isn't necessary, but that's how I like to start it. And then I'll just insert the eyes between the 2 single crochet rounds. And then I'll insert and I'll secure one side. If I know it's in the right round, then I will just secure this eye and not have to worry about it falling out while I'm trying to get the other eye. Then the second eye, I trace the round around and I'll insert it into a random place. And then I will measure, and as I can see, I would want it to be a little bit lower on the face, so I'll bring it down by a couple stitches. And just about here is good. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then I'll double check that I'm on the right round, because I have actually done that before with one of these. I had to cut the back off, which was really tedious. Once you get in the right place, secure that backing, and now you can stuff the head. You want to make sure you fully stuff your head now though, because the way we crochet this on, you won't have a chance to do it later. So stuff it as much as you're willing, and then set the head aside. We're going to move on to the tail, and then we are going to do the fins, and then we can finally put it all together. So here's what your head should look like. We're going to do the tail. You're going to start with a magic ring or your chain 2 method, whichever you prefer. Now I'm not showing you how to do it because I assume you know how to do it. If you don't, you can just look up on YouTube, and I'm sure you can find plenty of tutorials. So now we're going to do a single crochet of 4. So this is for the tail. We're going to do a 4 single crochet rather than a 6. And you're going to tighten your magic ring, and for round 2 you're going to do an increase in each stitch, so go from 4 to a total of 8 stitches. And then for the final round, you're just going to single crochet in each stitch. So this is the tail. It's super straightforward and works up really fast. Slip stitch, chain 1, fasten off, leaving a shorter tail. You really don't need a long one. And then before you turn it right side out, I'm going to secure the tail. Okay, and then turn it right side out, and there you have your tail. Fold it in half to where the end where you fastened off is in the middle somewhere. And then there you have your tail. You can set this aside as well. Now we have to make 4 fins. So you're gonna start with your chain 2 or your magic ring, whichever one you prefer. And you're gonna single crochet 6 into this magic ring or your chain 2 method. Now you're going to increase in each stitch around. Okay, for round 3 you're going to single or increase and then single crochet, and you're going to repeat that all the way around. For the next round, you're going to increase single crochet 2 and repeat that all the way around. And then for the next round, we'll increase single crochet 3. Okay, once you have finished your increase rounds, you're going to secure your center tail. In our last round, we will be sealing this fin off for good. So we have to secure this tail now. Once your tail is secure, we're going to fold the fin in half, and we're going to be working through both layers. So to start off, we're going to, if it will focus, we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch and into our previous stitch. This can be a little bit of a tight squeeze, but that's about what it should look like. And you're just gonna single crochet as normal. And then you're going to insert your hook into the next stitch and then the stitch behind it. And you're just gonna repeat this all the way down, just regular single crochets in each stitch until you get to the end. Make sure you tuck that tail in, and do not stuff the flippers either. Leave them unstuffed. And then when you finish, you're going to chain 1, fasten off, and you want to leave a tail just a little bit longer than the fin itself. The way that I crochet these fins on, I make sure that the right side is up on all sides. So you'll need a little bit of a longer tail than you might need if you didn't do that. I made these off camera since that's a bit boring. Watch me make the same thing 4 times. But you should have 4 fins. Your tail, little baby tail, also leave unstuffed. Then you have your head, stuff it, put eyeballs on it if you are going to do that. If you're embroidering eyes, I'd recommend waiting until you crochet everything together. And then your shell. So now what we're going to do is create a slip knot onto our hook. This is just a basic slip knot, nothing special. You only need a short little tail. And then we're going to join our yarn onto that back loop that we pulled the working end through, the no longer working end. And we're just gonna single crochet to join. And then we're gonna single crochet in the next stitch, which is a little bit lower, just like that. Because this is where the slip knot was, there's a little bit of a step, so to speak, but it's totally fine, you just crochet over it. Now the first thing we're gonna join on are our fins. So the basic makeup for the turtle, I'll probably put it up on the screen to make it a little easier, but I like to have the flat part facing the head. So this is where the tail will be, and then we'll have our fins connected here and here. We'll have our head here, and then the other fin on the other side facing this way. But the first fin we're going to join on will be the rounded hump facing you with the tail outside of the shell. If you want, you can crochet it this way with the tail in, but I like to keep the front of the crochet piece so you can see these are the nicer single crochets, these are the not so nice. So I like to have this on the bottom for all the fins. So that's why I do what I do. Now the next step, we will be crocheting through this stitch right here. So if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll be crocheting that 4 single crochet. And then instead of crocheting along the top edge, what we're gonna do is we're gonna single crochet in this stitch. and then this stitch right here, this stitch, and then this stitch. So for a total of 4 single crochets, and I'll show you how to do that actually. I just wanted to show you what stitches we're going to be working in for the fin. We're going to insert our hook into that 4 single crochet from the hump down and then into the next back loop, and we're just going to single crochet as normal. And then in that next stitch you'll insert your hook and then in through the back loop and pull through all of that, and then finish your single crochet. Same for the next stitch. Now this doesn't have to be exact, but it should have 4 single crochets, and then in that final stitch, again, single crochet. Each fin should have a total of 4 single crochets across it, and then this will be our join, and this is actually very tight, very secure, not really gonna go anywhere. In the next stitches, we're going to single crochet 6. And there we have our fin attached like so. And then we have our 6 single crochets. We're going to join on the next fin, and this next fin will be facing the exact same way. So with the hump facing that way towards your hook where you'd be working, insert your hook through that 4th single crochet and into the next back loop. Complete the single crochet and repeat that 3 more times through the fin. And then single crochet in the next 2 back loops just normally. And there you have your second fin attached and no sewing involved. So now we're going to join the head, which can be a little bit harder, but what we're going to do is we're going to fold the head where we think it lines up best with the eyes. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that the part you label as your chin or the bottom of your head, you want it to be facing you. So you want it to be upside down. And what we're going to do is we're going to work through both these layers of the head and the back loop all at the same time, and this just helps you position the head. Like I said, we will be securing the head later because it can be real floppy. This just helps you with the foundation so you don't have to actually think about it later. So now what we're going to do is we're going to insert our hook between 2 layers of the head like so, and then through a back loop on the shell, and you're going to single crochet. And you're going to repeat this 6 times, so go through both layers of the head and the shell. Now when you finish and your eyes might be a little bit crooked, it's not a big deal because we will be securing the head later, and we can curl it, we can adjust it as much as we need. Just as long as it's not wildly out of place, you can adjust it later. Once you have the head secure, you're going to single crochet in the next 2 back loops. And then this is what the head will look like. As you can see, it is quite floppy. Obviously the body isn't stuffed. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Stuffed. The body isn't stuffed, so it's gonna have more of a flop at this point. Keep this tail from your head on the outside of the body if you will be stitching later. Now we're going to join on another fin, and like I said, we're going to keep the fin, the hump side toward the tail, so we're going to make sure the flat side is toward the head. Now, before we continue, I would like to say that this can be considered wrong, especially people have different opinions. I like it more when the flat side's by the head. Some people like it more when the round part is next to the head, so just do whichever side makes sense for you. It doesn't really matter that much, so do whatever you want. We're going to, instead of single crocheting from this side, we're going to be single crocheting this way since we're on the opposite side of the body now. And we're going to insert through that second round and in through a back loop and single crochet. And then do this in the next 2 stitches. Make sure your tail is on the inside of the body. And then insert your hook through the stitch on the edge and through the next back loop. Like I said, as long as you have 4 single crochets across the fin, you're going to be good. If you have any large gaps, pull it out and try and close them a little bit better, but for the most part, you just got to experiment around and figure out what works for you. Now we're going to single crochet 6 in the next 6 back loops. Okay, now we're going to attach our final fin, which is the same as this fin here. Insert through that second round from the outside round. Single crochet 4 across the fin. If it's easier for you, you can just crochet across the very edge of the fin. I just prefer the way it looks when you go a little bit deeper. It also helps it look a little bit more secure. So whatever works for you, like I said, this pattern you can adjust as you need, as you see fit. So the next 3 back loops, we're going to single crochet 1. And now we're going to join our tail. The tail spans 4 back loops, and when you finish the tail, you'll have 1 stitch left for single crochet. If you don't have this many stitches, that's okay. If you're missing a stitch, you can just ignore it and crochet the tail in the same back loop, if that makes sense. If you have too many stitches, you can skip a back loop. Otherwise, you can go ahead and pull it out if you want. I find it's not worth it. It doesn't really change the way it looks. Some of these have the same mistakes in them, but nobody's gonna notice, especially because the shell lip is there. So the same way with the head, we're gonna single crochet through both layers of the tail and through the back loop, and we're gonna single crochet 4 across the tail and the shell. I don't know if this pattern is necessarily easier than sewing, but it is definitely a little bit, it's easier for me in terms of everything is in a correctly spaced place. You don't have to worry about making sure everything lines up. And if you think that it's not as secure as it could be, you can always come back and give it more security if you want. But I mean, for the most part, these guys are really hooked on there, and you don't have to worry about any knots coming undone since there's no sewing. I highly recommend. It definitely is a little bit of a learning curve to figure out, but it is worth the figuring out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to decrease single crochet 6 in each stitch around. If you have a gap like I do between these 2 loops, don't worry about it. We're going to fix it after this round. So finish this round, and then we've got some tucking in to go, tucking in tails to do, just because it's easier to do it now than later. And then we will finish up the belly and we'll be done. So I usually crochet the belly on my leg, so I'll stretch my arms almost completely out and leave the body flat. And it's much easier than trying to get it to work on the desk. So if you have a hard time getting around the head especially, try crocheting in a slightly different position. That's what I found when working with all of these guys here. It's much easier than trying to finagle it on a desk or something. I usually like to do the first round on the round, or on the desk, not the round. I usually like to do the first round or like scrunched over, and then everything else kind of stretched out. It makes it a little easier. You notice the lighting is getting worse. Apparently there's some storm clouds rolling in. So we're just gonna pretend like that's not happening and continue filming. Yeah, not even that light. Okay, so there's a few things we have to do before finishing the final rounds of this. I find it's much easier to do these things when there's less rounds than when there's more rounds. So the couple things we need to do, we need to tuck these tails in, and what I like to do is just thread it through the fin and then tie a couple knots on the inside of the body. Same with both of these fins. And then we're also going to close up this hole real quick. So what I like to do is insert my hook through basically anywhere and pull out the white tail or your secondary tail, and then pull it back through in a different space, and then just tie these two tails together, and those guys will be nice and secure and no longer have a big gaping hole there. Next thing, of course, is to tuck in the fin tails. So I'll do is just insert it through, bring it all the way through to the body. Make sure that you don't stick it out on accident, since the two layers don't have any stuffing in between. It can be kind of hard to get in there. And then just create a couple knots like we did with the magic ring. Create a loop, slip it under, and you're good to go. And when you do this, make sure you don't pull too tight, because you don't want to pull the fin in and curl it up. And you're just going to repeat this with the second fin as well. Now you don't have to do this with the other two fins when their tails are already on the inside. I just like to tie this knot because if you hang on the fin on this side, the tail might start to pop out. And it's not super likely to happen, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Try and be very careful about quality control and make sure things are secure and safe, especially since I'm selling my plushies. So if you're selling your plushies for markets like I am, or selling your plushies in general, just be cautious about what you're doing and go that extra mile to make sure it's going to last a long time. So now we're going to decrease all the way around. So we're going to decrease single crochet 5, and then for the next round decrease single crochet 4. Again, I'll put it up on the screen so you can read it, but you're just going to decrease, decrease, decrease until you get to decrease in each stitch. Follow those instructions. Let's get this done. Actually, I changed my mind. You do have to stuff at about the single crochet 2 mark, the decrease single crochet 2 mark, which you'll see when I get to that point. I'm dialing against the clock. The camera is overheated and dying, so we're just gonna stuff as quick as we can. We're gonna finish our last round, and then we're going to attach the head a little bit more sturdily. We're gonna stuff the body. I like to make sure the body is nice and stiff, so it'll keep its shape. This is one of those dolls that I actually really like making a little stiffer. And here's where we're at with our turtle. We have 2 more rounds, 3 more rounds, something like that. I don't know. We're just gonna continue decreasing. I'll be the first one to admit that I did not win the race against the camera dying. So I gave it 5 minutes to charge, and now we're just gonna try and beat it again. This is even worse than a game of chicken. When you finish your final decrease round, you're gonna slip stitch, chain 1, and fasten off. You want a medium length of yarn. We just need a long enough tail to seal up this bottom hole. And now you can see that the head is actually slightly crooked on mine, which is not a bad thing at all, because when we stitch the head on in just a second here, we can correct that. So that's the cool part about this pattern. You're going to thread your needle with your center tail, and we're just going to collect all the front loops and close up this hole. Now what I like to do is create a little bit of a knot and secure this end just a little bit more. And then we're going to tuck this tail right into the body and just weave it back and forth a few times. So I like to tuck all my tails in with my scissors once I've finished weaving. That way I don't have to cut anything, and I'm not letting yarn scraps sit around and go to waste. So tuck these in with your scissors. And now we're going to secure the back of the head. So you're going to thread your needle, and we're going to bring this tail from the center all the way to one edge of the head. Doesn't really matter which edge. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab this stitch here. So this is 2 rounds up, and you're going to sew the head across the back loops of the shell. And when you do this, you want to make sure you aren't leaving white lines on the front of the piece. So just grab the back loops and really secure the head in place. Skip as many stitches as you need to get it all lined up. Usually I just stitch every other stitch on the head since it's a bigger stitch count than what's actually here. And you can do this as many times as you want. Usually one going around the head once is good enough for me. And then you can also give it the shake test. You want your head to wibble a little bit, but not like it's gonna fall off. And then you can double check and make sure it's nice and secure. And it looks good for me. So now what I'm gonna do is secure this tail by creating a knot. And then you can tuck this tail right in to the body. Now the head is an optional step, but as you can see, it didn't take very long. So if you have the time and the ability, I highly recommend sewing the head on. It just makes the doll seem a lot more higher quality, especially if you're going to be selling these at markets or online or wherever you sell your plushies. If not, I hope this made a great gift, or, you know, a personal gift, whatever you're making your sea turtle for. When you're done, you give it the final squishy test, make sure everything is where it should be. Shake it out if you have any stuffing. If I were making this on my couch where I normally crochet, the shell would have been stuffed a little bit more. Because it's on the desk, it was harder to tell. This guy is finished and cute, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in my next tutorial. Hopefully it will be my jellyfish. I'll put it up on the screen. If not, it'll be something. I'll be here next week. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. And I hope you have lots of fun making all your own turtles. But I'll see you later. Bye.